Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I'll be showing you guys how to draft the basic pattern for a pencil skirt as well as the waistband for this pattern. I'll be showing you guys how to draft the pattern for the waistband as well. So if that is something you're interested in learning or knowing how to make, definitely do keep on watching. And if you're new on my channel, do subscribe, join the family. Okay, we like to see new faces as well as returning faces on this channel. And all my existing subscribers, thank you so much for supporting me. Okay, so to make my pattern, I'll be using the following tools: my tape, my scissors, straight ruler, French curve, pencil, pen, eraser, pencil sharpener, as well as some paper. So to start off, I already went ahead to draw a straight line along the length of the paper, and I gave 3 inches spacing between the edge of the paper, and this is just to ensure or help me get like accurate measurements and all that stuff. So right now I'm going to measure from that waistline 8 inches down, and this is my hip depth. So you want to measure from your waistline down to your hip, where your hip starts. So mine is 8 inches, and that is what I just have marked out. Okay, so next from that point I'll be marking or measuring my quarter of my waist circumference plus 1 inch for allowance, and I'm just going to take that measurement down and mark the points. I'm just mark that measurement down with a point. So next I'll be squaring out this line or those points. I'll be connecting those points together with a straight line, and that is going to help me form my hip line. Okay, so I'm just going to place my ruler and draw a straight line to connect those points. So basically I'm squaring out this line from the first one which I drew, and I'm just going to connect those lines together so you guys can see. So that's my hip line. I'm using a pen for this just so it's clear to you guys. I really don't like using marker pens because I feel it's always all over the place. So I like using pencils or pens, something really small and easy to control. So once that is done, from the end of that line we just drew, I'm going to draw another vertical line that extends upwards as well as downwards. So I'm not taking this line all the way to the top because I would need extra space at the top to modify my hip measurements later on. And at this point I didn't take it all the way down, but I will take it down later on when I start to measure for the knee circumference or the knee circumference area. Okay, so once that is done, I'll be joining those two vertical lines at the top with a straight line, basically the same way I did for my hip line. And this is where the waistline, this will serve as a guide for my waistline. Okay, so I'm just going to connect those points together, and this is what it looks like. Okay, so now we'll be working on the waist measurements. So what I'm going to do, the same way I took my hip measurements, I'm going to take my waist measurements, but this time I won't be adding any allowance to it. I'm just first going to take my original waist circumference divided by 4, and that is what I'm going to mark down. So I have that marked down, and I'm just going to make it a little bit more obvious so you guys can see, because I realized it was quite faint. The point was quite faint, so I made it a little bit more obvious. So from that point I'm going to go up by half an inch, not 1. I'm going to go up by half an inch, and this to create like a slope along the waistline, basically because the waistline is not always straight. It's not straight at all. Okay, so now I'm just going to measure my waistline and adding 1 inch for the allowance and just free, allowance. Yeah, so I'm just going to mark that spot that has the 1 inch allowance included, then go upwards again by half an inch, basically the same way I did for my original waistline. So this is going to be my new waist width. Yeah, my new waist width. So once that is done, I'll be taking my dart, and for my dart I'm using 4.5 inches from the center. So I'm just going to mark 4.5 for the width of the dart. Then for the depth or the length of the dart, I'm going to measure 4 inches downwards. So this is the front pattern. The front part, you don't want your dart to be too long on the front, so I'm going to use 4 inches for my front dart, and I'm just going to connect the line like so, as you guys can see. Then I'm just going to place my ruler and measure 1/2 inch on either side of that line that we just drew, and this is to basically create the real dart shape that we are all familiar with. Okay, so after doing that, after measuring 1/2 inch on either side, I am going to connect it to the tip of that straight line or that 4-inch line that we just drew, just to get that dart shape. As you can see, the dart is already coming out, right? So I'm just doing the same thing on the other side as well. Okay, and this is our dart. So you can leave your dart like this, but I'll go ahead and extend that dart upwards later on, just to ensure that it folds really well when I fold that dart in. So right now I'm just going to connect my waistline to my waist point. Yeah, that point of my waist point or my waistline. Yeah, I'm just going to connect it to my hip line, and I'm doing this using my French curve. Okay, so I'm using the second waistline, that waistline measurement that has the 1 inch allowance, not my original waistline, guys, so you guys know that. Then I'll be connecting that waistline to that outer dart line. Okay, not to the center dart line, not to the front, the outer dart line, just that line on the edge. Then I'll be moving over to my knee. So I went ahead to measure around my knee, and I ensured to spread my legs a bit, just so it's not too tight and it's not so impossible to walk in this, walk with it. So I went ahead to open my legs a bit, then take the measurement. So now I'm just finding 1/4 of that measurement which I took, and this is it. And this is actually 8 inches and 8 inches and some few bars. Then I went ahead to add 1 inch allowance to it, and I'm just going to mark that point down. Okay, so at this point you have the liberty to actually make your skirt tighter or freer depending on what you want. Okay, then I connected that point to my hip line to get that pencil silhouette shape that we often see in pencil skirts and pencil dresses. So what I was saying, you have the liberty of making your skirt wide or free or tighter at that knee point. Okay, just measure as wide as you want. So next, at the waist point, I'm going to reduce the center front by 1/4 inch because I extended that side upwards by 1/2 inch, and I don't want a lot of bulginess or excess fabric around that center front. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to measure 1/4 inch from this point, just to reduce the fabric. And most times when you see bulgy skirts or dresses, it's probably because it was raised and it wasn't reduced from the center front. So I'm just going to mark 1/4 inch, then connect it back to that center front line with my straight ruler, and I'm just going to connect using my straight ruler. You want to take your time so you ensure that the line actually meets and it doesn't go through, or it doesn't even get to it. So that would be my new waistline, and I'm just going to cut out this pattern first. This is basically my pattern guide. This is the pattern guide. This is not the exact pattern I'll be using to make fabrics. Okay, so I'm just going to cut out this pattern guide, and as you can see, I went ahead to extend the dart upwards by 1/2 inch, just to ensure that when I fold the dart, it's not so short that I have to worry about the waist on that part being really short. So next, I'll be tracing this pattern guide yet another pattern which I have done already. I added my indicators, my notching my growing lines and the 1/2 inch seam allowance along the top. Let me just turn that around so you guys can see. So I had a 1/2 inch allowance at the top, the sides, but I did not add any hem allowance to the bottom, and the reason is that most fabrics are shorter than others, or some fabrics are shorter than others, so I don't want to add like 1 or 2 inches seam or hem allowance, then the fabric is not enough for me to do that kind of allowance. I don't know if you guys understand. So I'll be using any fabric I'm using, I'll be cutting the hem allowance on the fabric that I'm using, and I'm not cutting it on this pattern. So for the back, I went ahead to use my pattern guide. I traced out my pattern guide basically, and this is what I'll be using for my back. So let's just go ahead and modify this back pattern, or this pattern, to suit a back pattern, right? So I have my dart notchings indicated, I have my dart points indicated, as well as my waistline. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to show you guys my original my front waistline, which is this, and it is 4 inches deep for the dart. The dart is 4 inches deep, or 4 inches in length. So my back is going to be 5 inches deep because of your bum, or because of my bum actually. You don't want to make it too short, okay? Then you have a lot of, if you do that, tends to have a lot of puckerings right on top your bum. So my dart is on the back side, is going to be 5 inches long. But first, I'm just going to connect that waistline together, just so I know where I'm measuring from. I won't be taking my dart measurement from that top peak, but rather I'll be taking it from my original from my waistline, and not from that top peak. Okay, so I just went ahead to center that top dart, just so I have a guide on where to take the dart from, or where the dart is going to be taken from. Okay, so next I'll be measuring my dart line, which is 5 inches long, and I'll be measuring along that center line. So I'm just going to place my ruler and draw a straight line that measures 5 inches. So I'm just going to draw the line, and remember, I'm drawing from my waistline, not from that 1/2 inch extension for my dart fold. Then I'll be drawing in the sides of the dart to get my real my real dart shape, the real dart shape that we all know. So I'm just going to connect these lines together, and yeah, that's it. We have our darts, short and simple, like so easy. Next, I'll be taking my zipper allowance. Okay, so from that center line, I'm just going to mark 1.5 inch from my zipper allowance, and that's what I am just marking. So from that 1.5 inch, actually 1 inch is going to be the zipper allowance, then the other 1/2 inch is going to be the turning for the zipper allowance, or to hem this, the seam for the zipper allowance. So after marking those 1.5 inch points, I'm going to connect those points with a straight line like I have done already. And so that is my zipper allowance. So I connected my waistline to the ends of that zipper line that we just created. So next up, I'll be adding my 1/2 inch seam allowance. I'll be adding 1/2 inch seam allowance at the top, at the sides, and not at the center back, because that is where our zipper will be. We don't need any allowance in there again. Okay, so after doing that, then this is what the back pattern looks like. I have added the 1/2 inch seam allowance on the sides, at the top. Do remember that no hem allowance was added to these. I'll be cutting 2 of these. Okay, so now I'll be showing you guys how to make the waistband, and I'll be starting with the front pattern. So what I like to do is I just place the pattern on a fresh pattern paper, ensuring that it has a little bit of extension on the bottom. I'm not actually placing on the edge of the paper. So I'll be tracing out my original waistline, which I have done already, not the allowance, not from the hem allowance, your original waistline. Then I'll be extending the line upwards by 2.5 inches on all sides, just to get that the length of the band. That's the length of the band. To get the length of the band, which is 2.5 inches, and I'll be drawing that on all sides. Then after drawing the band, I went ahead to mark 1/2 inch from the sides, not from the center, from the sides, and I'll be connecting it to that point and cut off. So this is it after cutting. So what I'm going to do now is to put it on a fresh pad paper and trace out, and I added 1/2 inch to the bottom, to the sides, and to the top. Remember, this is the center for the front pattern. It's not going to be cut in 2 pieces. I'll be cutting this on fold, so I did not add any 1/2 inch allowance on the center front. Okay, so basically this is the same way I'll be cutting the back waistband. So for the back waistband, I'm just going to add that zipper allowance. Okay, I'll be making sure to add that zipper allowance just so you guys. So I'm just going to show you guys, this does not have a zipper allowance. Okay, and it's going to be smaller than the back pattern because of the zipper allowance. So I'm just going to trace out my original waistline on my back, not the 1/2 inch allowance. Okay, so this is the back pattern for the waistband. I added the zipper fold, which is 1.5 inch, the 1/2 inch allowance at the top, the sides, and the bottom. Okay, and the length of that is 2.5 inches as well. So this is the pattern on. These are the patterns all together. You can see the waistline. So you want to ensure that the waistline of the skirt body actually tallies with that of the waistband. If the waistband is too small or too big, it's going to be an issue. So you want to ensure that the waistband of the waistband pattern also matches the waistline of the skirt pattern. So guys, that's pretty much it. This is all the pattern making for today. So let me know your thoughts on this video. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Give me a thumbs up if you learned something. Give me a thumbs up if you found it helpful. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel yet, do subscribe and click on the notification bell so you get notified whenever I upload a new video. And yeah, if there's any video you want me to get to, do leave a comment in the comment section. And guys, let me know your thoughts in the comment section. It helps me a lot. Like, it helps me know what you guys are thinking. So until next time, my loves, bye.